Good morning and welcome to the Reflective Coach podcast with Coach Luca. I hope you've been enjoying the recent episode with Laura Grau here. It's certainly a wonderful episode and there is so much being shared in relation to that. It is a wonderful episode with so many great insights, and she talks about happy accidents, supporting players, their profiles, sharing them upon social media, the development of her skill set, and everything off the pitch that can complement her club, her organisation, and how she has opportunities for the future ahead. Now, these are just some small reflections from her episode, and her episode possesses so much within her entire episode length, which you can really listen to across YouTube, Spotify, and Podcast Addict, where you can also find an array and a wide selection of other episodes and wonderful interviewees. This week's episode is slightly different because I had a bit of a technical issue, unfortunately, recording Manya Papillon's episode, whereby it will now be slightly delayed and will move up the episode list in a different contrast of time. However, this week I just wanted to do an honest reflection hour. This is something I haven't done for, I would say, at least over a year, because I've had so many wonderful guests on the podcast. It's been about them and sharing their insights. So we've had the Q&A series, the Coaching Insight series, and then we've had general podcast episodes and coaching tips on the journey so far. But with the last year, it has been a huge focus on the Coaching Insight series and the Q&A series, which has really taken a contrast and a length forward. So the general podcast episodes, which consist of honest reflection hours and honest reflection opportunities, as well as coaching resources, has taken a bit of a back foot. And there is nothing wrong with this because the episodes have been so wonderful for you to listen to other people and not only me. However, I just wanted to do a bit of honest reflection. 2023 has thrown a bit of a curveball. So at the end of last year, I wanted to take a step forward towards trying to progress onto my UEFA. Within doing so, I decided to leave the club that I was a founder for, and one of the teams that I had been with since they were about under sixes. So over this time, I spent about 7 years with the team, founded a club with them, and had gone through a wide variety of actions and experiences with them. There's certainly young people who are now in high school and were going off to experience and explore themselves in terms of how they were getting older. Obviously, all the variety that comes with getting older and going to high school. So it was going to be a really interesting journey. But within that time and that transition, it was a bit of reflection for me about how I wanted to progress on myself. So it ended up being a sort of perfect time because it was a transition where they were moving on in terms of going to high school and getting older, but it also meant that I could take a step and they could refresh and go forward with a remaining coaching team in terms of how they went forward. Within doing so, I decided to go back to a club that I was coaching at during COVID. Now, my time at that club didn't go as how I wanted it to because COVID kicked in and then we missed the entire season. And because of my commitments to the one club I had, I just didn't have the time to commit to them. However, the door was open for an opportunity and I decided to return. I wanted to work with the senior squads and start to step up my tactical game. I wanted to really explore these options and develop my experiences whilst working in terms of approaching games on match day, tactical changes, reflections, the framework, building my game model a little bit further and transitioning in terms of that. So I decided to take over their under-18s as they were looking for a coach, and this meant working with youth and working with the seniors, which was perfect. It was a good season, very, very tough. So we had a magnitude of barriers and challenges which faced us. So, for example, the kit wasn't prepared at the start of the year and we had a bit of delay on that. Our standalone training sessions weren't organised by the club yet. There was a combination of last year's team and their style of play with about 7 or 8 players where I had coached at academy level years before, but they had been at the club for 2 years and had a different coach, so they had their style of play. We then had the 16s who were coming up and had their own coaching style, and on the back of not a very successful season, but one which allowed them to build and move forward up to under-18s football. But they had a style of play, and then I was coming in with my style of play. So I was essentially merging 2 squads together with 3 styles of play. But this was a challenge within itself, but it was a very enjoyable one of how we could take combinations and really build upon a game model that could suit everyone whilst being adaptable and flexible. Of course, over this time, it was a learning curve for me because how interchangeable are you with your principles and does this go against the sort of grain against what you want? At times, yes, it did, and therefore did I fall short of my coaching principles, and was I always entirely happy with what I wanted to achieve? And the answer was no. So realistically, should I have moulded? Should I have adapted? Should I have stuck to my principles? And that's where key reflections come from. We talk about adaptability and we talk about taking things forward. However, at times I believe there's a certain opportunity where you must stick to your principles. As many have said on the podcast, and as we know, many successful managers at the top level of the game say absolutely stick to your principles. But there's nothing wrong with being adaptable in terms of your game model. So your style of play might slightly change, but you might have principles which are core right throughout, and your values may maintain and stay where they're at. It's certainly a wonderful reflection game. However, that's just a piece on itself. So I decided to take over this squad and walk away from a team which was very important to me. The year went by and we had some success in terms of how we improved across the course of the season. We started to keep clean sheets and reduce the amount of goals we were conceding. We weren't being walked over and we were very strong to play against, certainly at home. And we had a very good foundation and reputation, not only that the club had built over the course of the years itself, but then one that we built as a team. So teams knew they would come to us and they would have a very difficult game, and they knew that they would be welcoming a team who wouldn't roll over and would fight right until the very end. At times we went 4-0 down and then we crept back into games 4-3, but we just fell short in terms of that final energy, that engine, which would have took us to 4-4. However, that comeback to come 4-3 against what would be called an academy team in a grassroots league was a fantastic comeback, work rate, energy and commitment within itself. It also showed the tactical style of play, how our players linked up and built together, their resilience and magnitude towards approaching the game itself, and it was really enjoyable to see the growth of these players. So whilst the barriers and challenges were difficult to approach and to have in front of us at times, and there may have been certain criticisms which came towards us as a result of these factors, realistically I very much enjoyed my time with the club and I very much enjoyed coaching these players. It was wonderful to see them step up, progress, move forward, really come together more as a team, take on more style of play, how I was preparing for the year ahead, working with an assistant coach who was a fantastic assistant coach. We had built the foundations for the second year ahead, as it was a 3-year building block for us. And then transitioning the players who were too old then at that point from the previous squad, who had been very successful, could then move on, which then changed the entire dynamic, the environment and the personality of the squad that we had. However, the under-16s were going to step up from the year after. So by the time our year had finished, then the under-16s were going to come up part of the under-18s as a natural progression. Within doing so, they brought their own head coach, a head coach who had been with them since under-6s himself, someone who coaches the seconds and is very close to the first team manager, someone who's been with the club for over 10 years and has played many games across first, seconds and thirds himself, and had known the parents, the players of the under-16s who were coming up, and they made the majority of the squad that were coming up at the under-18s. Now, whilst coaching our current under-18s in the seconds level as well, it meant that he knew the entire squad coming up from under-16s as well as the existing 18s. So unfortunately, some discussions took place at the club and it led to them making a decision that they wanted their previous under-16s coach to take over and really head up the under-18s for the year ahead. So at that time, it meant my exiting from the club, and within doing so, it felt a great deal of sadness, but it also felt a time of relaxation and time to take some time to myself and to really reflect upon my game. But it was also sadness because I'd given up a team that I'd been with for 7 years and given so much commitment towards, one that I could have maintained a part of their journey and could really still be a part of. But I suppose everything happens for a reason, and it all happens towards the bigger picture. I couldn't have foreseen this year and how it would have turned out, or the fact that the under-16s would have stepped up, unless I really had detailed discussions the year before. However, over that course of the time, the board had changed, the chairman had changed, the under-16s had come up, the outlook towards that had changed, and therefore there was a whole magnitude of reasons that couldn't have been foreseen that really did change the scope of things. Upon this course then, it was obviously that great deal of sadness because I could have maintained a team that I was with and continued to enjoy being with. However, you can't always foresee these situations, you can't always play them forward, and sometimes that's just the way that life plays out. But it was just unfortunate whereby I'd lost this team and therefore had stepped away from another. But I had a wonderful experience at both, and I had led the foundations for my previous club in a really good direction where they had a really good coaching team of people that I really trusted, adored, and had so much time for and still do. Now, at the end of the year, I took some reflection out and I was like, right, so far I'm working full time in education. So, therefore, I'm in school every day teaching and working within a behaviour section. That's quite tiresome within itself, is quite challenging, and therefore requires a lot of commitment and energy within that. As well as that, then I'm studying in university part time. I've got the podcast, and there was this accolade or reflection whereby I spoke to Rodri Jones, who has appeared on the podcast. We were at an event together, and we had previously spoke before that. But at this event, this what led to us having a bit of a discussion, and then therefore led to us really chatting about the growth of our minds, and therefore led to him coming on the podcast. But at this conversation at an event, he spoke about spinning many plates. And at this time, I was obviously spinning many plates. So I had school, I had university, I had the podcast, and I was coaching. So I was spinning 4 plates on itself. I was also doing a bit of scouting for a professional football club. So I have 5 plates within that. And then you take the plate of life itself. You're spinning 6 plates day to day. So therefore, I'm stretching myself in because I'm not really committing to university as such. Because in the late nights, I'm getting home from work. Therefore, I want to maybe relax, or then I'm going out to coaching. I'm coaching on the weekends. So I'm not allocating as much time because I'm trying to balance everything within making everyone else happy whilst trying to extend my experiences towards the outlook of the future. And therefore, it was actually detrimental to myself. So it's led to a point where I've ended up moving on from the professional club. I had a point to really focus on uni and work this year and only spin 2 plates, and then the podcast is taking care of itself. I know I want to put more time into the podcast and really develop more of the content and what I'm sharing with everyone, because there is so much to really share, and so much more that I want to do with so many ideas and so many new upcoming programs, episodes, and guests up and coming on the pod, which is really, really exciting. Within doing so, though, it then meant I could take some time out to really try and push forward on my life, to really try and take stock of things, to try and really harness what is going to impact me long term. So whilst I've been coaching for at least 8 years now, it means that once I have my university degree and really focus on this for the next year to 2 years and finish it, then I've got that degree for life, and that time that I would have took out would have been really beneficial, and more beneficial than coaching for another 2 years and maybe not getting to the levels that I wanted to get to. However, having a discussion with someone that I previously coached with a professional club, and someone who's now managing what would be the rival club of the team that I had just left at under 18s, he asked whether I wanted to come and take over the current 19s in the female game and support upon the first team. This was a great opportunity and a great reflection point as to whether I wanted to remain within the game, step into the female game and really enjoy and experience that, and whether I wanted to really harness those energies and really try to find myself in coaching where I once was a few years ago. So I decided to go along to a session and have a discussion with him, and I really enjoyed what I saw in front of me. So I decided to come on board. I decided that, Friday night games weren't going to be too bad, training on a Tuesday. But the only downfall was the amount of travel that remains within the female game because of the types of clubs, the teams and the programs and where they're at. That means a lot of travel, especially on a late night on a Friday. And a lot of commitment then comes with that. And then I really reflected upon, I was at a perfect point where I had finished with the under 18s and I really wanted to focus on uni and school in terms of teaching. Where if I was going to this club, then I was really moving away from what I wanted to do, which was focus on those elements. So I was stretching myself in. And why am I stretching myself in? Are these players going to really appreciate what I'm doing? Hopefully, yes. But how many players have I previously coached in the past which remain in that mindset and gratitude? And therefore, is it really time to focus on me and take a bit of selfishness back to really get to where I want to be? I feel that I've missed out on things in life. I've fallen short maybe in terms of the amount of time that I've wanted to commit to studies and really explore and harness my own approach to it, my own understanding, exploring concepts a little bit more, doing more academic research, reading journals a little bit more. So therefore, I've fallen short in terms of the background that I'm able to take into lectures, etc. Because I'm not putting in the time because I'm allocating it to coaching, and therefore it's a benefit to everyone else, and therefore was maybe not a benefit to me at this point because I'd spent so much time coaching. Now, within doing so, I have really wanted to explore my mind, widen the horizons, take away that background knowledge, do a bit more academic research, more journal reading. So it came as a big reflection was in terms of, can I sustain this for another year? Do I want my next year to look like this? Am I going to fall short in terms of where I'm going to be at and what I want to do in terms of university and work? So I've decided over the last week or so that I would step away from coaching for maybe the next year to 2 years, and whether I'm going to come back into it is another question. Is it going to help re-energize me? Is it going to allow me to complete university and then begin teaching entirely? Is it going to allow me to focus on what I'm doing now in education and enjoy it even more? Is it going to lead me in a ring road to come back round to it? Or am I going to end up focusing on uni, then into teaching and move on from it? I don't know at this point. I wish I had the answers to those questions, but I really want to explore going abroad now at this point as well. You know, I was speaking to so many wonderful American coaches on here, and so many coaches who have gone out to America to explore the game and who are really, really enjoying it. I'm so jealous every time I speak to everyone out in the US, and the program sounds so very exciting that I wish I was a part of it. At the moment, I can't move out because of the commitment in terms of my university studies. That has got me locked in for the next 2 to 3 years, definitely. And if not 4 years, because of the commitment to teacher training, which is a combination of something where I want to achieve before going to America, or whether I go to America, come back and then teach. There's a lot to weigh up over the next 2 years, but that's why I think some time out from coaching is going to allow me to really explore these areas and to really jump into uni a bit more and really to enjoy my teaching, my work, to enjoy university, to explore more, and then to really complete university and then really consider where I want to go and what I want to do in the next 2 to 5 years, for example, following the completion of university. However, at this point, the reflection of spinning too many plates and focusing on what I want to do, and what is gonna benefit me for the long term, I had to really take away a few plates, and now I'm enjoying it a little bit more. In terms of life itself, I'm able to focus on me. I'm able to have time to come home on a Friday night and watch a TV series that I haven't done. Especially in a week where I've been working. I've been studying, I've been reflecting, I've been to university. So on a Friday night, coming home, having a bit of dinner, watching a TV series, chilling out, is a real refresher in terms of then going off on a Saturday and doing some hobbies, etc., or popping out. And then on a Sunday, then, you know, I can really focus on university work, or I can spend the entire weekend on university rather than trying to squeeze in a match and university around that. So it's ended up being a really good point for me because I'm able to enjoy a lot of myself. I look back at my 20s, I'm like, whoa, I've flown by. I'm 27 in 2 months' time or so. I want to continue to enjoy my 20s, but I want to enjoy it even more than the last few years. I feel that I've missed out on so many personal experiences, so many opportunities to have done things in my life, because I've committed so much time to coaching, and I've really been relentless in that approach and that focus and that commitment to the desire to get to where I want to go, whereby I've missed out and couldn't take myself away from coaching enough because my mindset was so fixed upon being with my players, being within those training sessions, and that FOMO, the fear of missing out, the fear of missing just one training session or a training session and a game on a weekend, which I couldn't bring myself from. So within that, I've missed personal experiences because of that relentless commitment and that FOMO. However, at this point in time, if I want to go and do something on a weekend, now I've got the opportunity to do so with a wide array of experience and qualifications behind me, where I can really focus on university and my work whilst enjoying life to maximise what's left of my 20s. I can't really remember between 21 to where I'm at now in terms of the amount of personal experiences because they're very little, far and few between because the years have flown by. Therefore, I haven't maximised my life enough in terms of those personal experiences and enjoyments because of the amount of commitment that I've given. There are so many wonderful reflections, but I'm at a point now where I'm enjoying life at the maximum capacity in contrast to the last few years where I'm at. I've enjoyed coaching. I'm happy to leave it where it currently is. I'm exploring the podcast, and whether that goes down a media route, that is something which is really starting to take my mind in another area and explore, and something that I'm really enjoying. So is that a consideration whether I teach for a few years and then go into the media and then explore this a lot more further and then come back into lecturing in terms of my media experiences? Am I going to want to do media and enjoy it more than coaching? And am I going to miss coaching, or is there a combination of putting it all together at one point, which is really good to do so? So they're really reflection points to take forward. There's many opportunities, but within that, some people might go, be committed to one, really focus on what you're doing. And therefore I really am, because I'm focusing on university, I'm focusing on teaching. That is my outlook for the next 5 to 7, maybe 10 years. But whether I go off to do coaching within that across the US and combine teaching and coaching, which I know many individuals and professionals out in the US do, then that might be a perfect world in terms of doing a bit of the social media and the podcasting, teaching and coaching, where therefore in life I'll be very, very happy at where I'm at and what I'm doing with that combination of elements, which really harnesses my experiences, my skill set, my enjoyments, and where I really want to go with it. But right now, there's a lot of considerations within that. I'm putting myself in a position where I can really reflect upon the past and where it's gone, reflect upon the future, have that outlook towards the future, but trying to enjoy what is here and now. Something that stands out in every conversation with every coach that I have, enjoy the here and now. And that is something which I'm trying to do more and more and make the most of it before I'm in my 30s, 40s, then looking back going, do you know what, I wish I'd done more in my 20s and wish I'd explored more and taken time to myself. So I've taken ownership of that and I'm really happy with what I'm doing. And as I said, I'm really happy to take that step forward away from coaching, which is something where I feel very refreshed. But as said, I've got plenty of experience and contacts behind me, and hopefully the outlook towards the future is very prosperous and enjoyable compared to where I've been at. I feel that I've been in motion so long in terms of certain areas that I've been within coaching, where the wheels have really stopped and they've been stuck in mud, but they've been constantly circling, but not actually going forward. So it's nice to actually get out of the car and maybe take some steps forward and then join on that journey at a later point within that. But this has been an honest reflection and a little bit of a shorter episode than always. I'm considerate and reflective of the fact that some episodes are quite long and takes up, hour and a half to 2 hours at times. But when I'm talking to these coaches, the episodes are so enjoyable. And I love chatting to the coaches. I want to really pull out as much information from them whilst I've got them in front of me on the podcast to really share those experiences and those insights with you as a community, so you can really take upon your learning and really take it forward where it's going to really be beneficial to you, and the podcast maximizes as many opportunities as possible for you as an audience. There's so many great episodes out there and there are so many great coaches. I love speaking to them and I love delving into conversations which take an hour, hour and a half. But this is going to be towards, 25 minutes to half an hour. And that's a little snapshot episode for this week. It's been nice to get an honest reflection hour, and this has been something that's been on, well, I say reflection hour, it's less than that, but reflection in the hour maybe. But it's been something that I've been thinking about and contemplating over the last few weeks as to whether I've wanted to do a reflection point, whether I've wanted to get this up as an episode, whether this has been personal to me. But then I reflect back, and this is what has led to the Reflective Coach podcast and where it's actually at. I actually started by having honest reflections within myself where I wanted to record that. And I thought, how could I turn them into episodes? And it's really built upon the journey and the points of this podcast and where it's currently at. It's something that I've very much enjoyed and something that I love taking forward. And I've been so blessed to have so many wonderful guests, which has really taken the podcast forward in other areas, whereby I've been able to focus on the Coaching Insight series, the Q&A series, at the absolute forefront of what has taken the podcast forward, whereby these other elements of the podcast maybe are in the background a little bit and remain as previous episodes, but they're still part of the podcast. They're still going to come back around. They're still going to happen at other points. So I'm very pleased to get this episode out there. I was very displeased, very upset and very unhappy that I had a bit of a technical issue with Manya's episode, but that is all on me and I take accountability for that, and I can't wait to sit with her again and really record the episode. I'm so upset because there was so much wonderful content within that. It was absolutely a perfect top class episode recorded first time, and I couldn't wait to share it out there with everyone. As soon as we finished recording, unfortunately I was so down to realise the technical issue that I had with that episode, because so much wonderful content had been lost, and I felt as if I had wasted her time. But Hopefully I can get her on in the future in terms of the time frames that is out there. The season is very, very busy for itself and a lot of the US coaches, but there is an episode coming up with her assistant coach. Right now, I'm smashing out the assistant and lead coach or head coach combinations at the moment, which I'm again very, very blessed and able to build up the big picture and how they can really relate to each other, what they do to complement each other, and what they really bring to the program and their players. But there are so many wonderful, wonderful episodes out there. Laura Grauhere's is a fantastic episode. Please drop that like, drop that follow, drop that comment, and that subscribe. It really does help the podcast. Really go back and listen to the previous episodes that have been out there and look forward to the ones that are up and coming. This is Coach Luca on the Reflective Coach podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, Podcast Addict, TikTok, and Flickr. But you can really listen upon Spotify, YouTube, and Podcast Addict. Don't forget, I'm Anthony_Luca96 on Twitter. It's TRC Podcast _ on Twitter. It is the Reflective Coach podcast everywhere else. I hope you can drop those follows, those likes, because it really does help the podcast grow. And I hope this honest reflection point has been a little bit beneficial, but hopefully gives a little bit of an insight into me and where I'm at. Gives you a little bit more connection to the host and who I am, and really can give some time and that focus upon where people are at in life and spinning so many plates, whilst linking you to Rodri Jones's episode, which is really important and one within itself that stands out with me in terms of life lessons, my reflections upon the past, where I'm going, and what my outlook is towards the future. This is Coach Luca on the Reflective Coach podcast. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to bringing you so many more episodes which can be enjoyable and helpful towards you. Please drop those likes and those comments, those subscribes. It does help. From me, take care. Continue to update your learning journal, your learning log, and continue to take away the points from so many wonderful coaches. And don't forget the Q&A series and coaching insights. I'm always up for collaboration, so just get in touch. But right now, listen to the magnitude of the episodes that are out there. Many thanks from me, and I'll speak and see you soon.